The world of marketing and PR has turned into quite the frenzy, and it's not easy to navigate the ever-changing landscape. Join me in my journey to learn from the best, as some of the world's top marketing and PR professionals share their stories on ways you can harness these changes to grow your brand. It's time to fuel the frenzy. And welcome to our listeners and to our watchers on Facebook Live. It's our Fuel the Frenzy podcast, and it's fantastic to be here again. And I'm excited because we have some really great stories to share with you today on some phenomenal successes which have happened with an agency called Droga5. And I happen to have the wonderful Amy Avery here with me today. Amy, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you. So I think you're in Texas right now. Correct, in Dallas.
I am. So it's only 8:30 where I am in the morning. Super early.
Super early. So we're really glad to have you on the show. And so, Amy, can you just start off and share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and about Droga5? I'm starting to read a lot of things about Droga5 in many publications right now. You guys do seem to do a phenomenal job working with some amazing brands. So can you just share a little bit of insight for us?
Yeah, sure. I'll start and tell you a little bit about Droga5 first.
Okay.
We're an independent agency, so we're headquartered in New York, have an office in London as well, and we're about 700 people. And our core is at its core a very, very creative agency, but we're a full service agency. So I think we started at how do we find a brand purpose, figure out who a brand is about, and then how do we stretch forward and think of that all the way to business design and business strategy at the top, all the way down through, then how do we get into comms planning and media planning and creative development and measurement at the end. So full service agency really, though, focused on taking a brand purpose and pulling it upwards and then all the way down through the funnel to performance marketing. For me, I'm our chief intelligence officer, and I lead really anything that is data-driven decision-making. So could be very up early in the business strategy part, looking at how do we help businesses figure out how to grow and where the opportunity is, into consumer insights and ending in measurement. So I'm kind of present throughout the process in our agency.
Great. And I know, Amy, you love data. Data analytics. I was reading a lot of information about you, but you just seem to, obviously this is a perfect world for you right now when you consider there's big data everywhere. It's what do we do with that data and how do we make that data actionable that you can really then show value to your clients, but also kind of improve those creative solutions that you're creating so they really are doing something. And so tell me a little bit about how did you get into data analytics? Is this something you've always had, been passionate about around the data for marketing?
It'll be sort of a windy story. I went to school to be a math teacher. I've always been a math person. Like I was that nerdy kid that was on the math team in high school. So I was a math person. It's funny. My mom was like, eventually this will be useful. And finally it is, it's a thing. But to get into advertising, I sort of stumbled into it, really. I worked early on at Gray in Atlanta, and they had called randomly. I'm not actually sure how they'd had my resume. And I started as an account person, but I always worked on direct response and digital businesses. So it was really about how do I understand the performance of what's working to make it better, very much in an optimization type role as an account person, and eventually evolved into now an intelligence group. And really, for me, it's what I've always liked about it is kind of this fact-based decision making. And I think there are analytics people who see everything very black and white. And then there are analytics people who are very creative. And I think that it takes a certain type of person, and it's why I've been drawn to it, because I love to be surrounded by a creative world, and I love the output of what we do. I don't have the ability to do it myself, but I have the ability to make it better. I think that's what really draws me into doing that for a living. It's very like-minded people in my team, people who love creative output, but really feel like we can, rather than, I think people expect that analytics and data will box creative in, and it really doesn't. It gives it so much more focus and so much more ability to survive out in the world.
It makes you question how we used to develop successful campaigns without any data, but it happened for many years, didn't it? But
It really is. I think through the time, even as few as 5 years ago, I had clients who were just like, "We should be on Facebook. We want a lot of followers." We were like, "Why? Do you know what followers mean? How does that help your business?" And
mm,
it's even then, people were just kind of making decisions the best they could, and intuition will take you a lot of the way there. So a lot of what we do is start at a hypothesis, just like it had been, but now there's enough data to actually follow that through and see if the hypothesis is true.
right. Sounds great. Sounds like you have a fantastic role. So, can you just share? There's many of our listeners who are in the PR world, Amy. And they're responsible for developing, creative campaigns, which really kind of integrate the PR discipline to really make sure they're going to get any campaigns which they create really get maximum impact, with the media community and help to take things viral. But, I think in many times PR is very much an afterthought rather than actually being something integrated from the beginning. And I know Joga 5, I love the way that you integrate PR into the whole kind of creative strategy. Can you kind of share some stories of how that's been successful for some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it right that it's for us, PR should be a channel that helps expand the reach that we're going to have and to really find the right people to drive engagement. So it is there in the strategy and it is there when we brief creative. And I think that has been what makes a big difference. Every other agency I've worked in really finds that as the end on how do you announce that something has already been done, and that's the PR. But PR is so much about, especially in this world today, around engagement and how can we activate something and get the right people connected with a brand and let people know about a thing. And PR is such a natural way to do that. We bring it in the process, and it's, I would say, true across every client we work on. I mean, in a couple easy examples, MailChimp, who's a marketing automation platform. We did a campaign for them called "Did You Mean?" You probably saw it out.
Yeah,
in
I
March.
did. I mean, they're obviously MailChimp's an Atlanta company, and we saw the ad. Actually, Katie in our office brought it up. We have these inspirational Monday morning meetings, and she felt very inspired by the ad that she saw on I-75 here in Atlanta. So yeah, tell us about that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's we went about it rather than explain who we were and talk at people about who MailChimp was as a brand. We wanted to connect with this creative class, and we wanted to do that by showing them that we're about creativity, that we're about building a business for an entrepreneur, but doing that with creativity. And that means connecting with that class of people in a very different way. So we wanted to build these things, but then we had to make them grow. So there was things like Nail Champ, which is a nail art contest. So it's, that's to build 9 full campaigns that you can't spend traditional money against those. I mean, if you think of how much money it would cost to launch 9 brands and get great awareness and recall on them and likability, we couldn't do that. So PR became very crucial. So for Nailchamp, really PR was about finding who are the influencers for that, and what channel should we actually connect with people. There was an actual live event, so how do we actually get people to the event? Snail print was another one. It was facials with snails, and how do we find a location, host that, invite the right people to attend it that are people that will go and talk about it and make it newsworthy for us. So each one of the things had its own PR campaign really within it that was about finding people, going to the right places and connecting with them, which I think is what made the campaign a success. I mean, at the end of the campaign, those 9 brands had higher recall than you see on brands that spend millions and millions in advertising and have been around for years.
Right. So that strategy wasn't just a creative advertising strategy where we saw it on billboards and we may have seen it, but you're saying there was a real live engagement piece to it, wasn't it? You took the PR element in terms of how do you go and reach and connect with people as well. How are the media part of that? Was it just, what was that strategy, or was it just really a strategy to connect with consumers, which then, got the media excited? So I'm just wondering, what was the actual media component of that?
It was both. So in the case of an event, it actually inviting them to that and allowing them to be part of the discovery of the thing and the launch of a new thing. There was some of very upfront, even before we launched work, kind of getting them excited about the work and having them be part of the discovery process. I mean, the way the campaign played out was one brand at a time, and we let the media in early. said, help us discover these, find them, and be the first of the media brands to come out and say, okay, well, look, the next one's out, and kind of be chasing them and looking for them, which was cool. We wanted to take our prospects on a journey there, and the media really took that journey with us.
Michael, welcome to Fuel the Frenzy.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here today.
Fantastic. We are delighted to have you, especially when you're about to kick off a month round-the-world trip just about. So you're going to be very busy. The fact that you could fit us in, we're very grateful for that, Michael. So can you just start off and just give a little bit of background, Michael, to yourself and your company, Barber&Hewitt? I'd love to hear more about that.
Absolutely. So barber&hewitt is a strategy and planning consultancy. We largely work with B2B and B2C brands that are usually in the 5 to about 150 million in revenue range. We help them focus on answering really thorny or sticky questions. So that's largely where we spend a lot of our times, is working through a lot of those tough questions that they're facing as marketing teams and or as customer experience teams.
Okay, very good. And you're the owner of that company, is that correct?
I am, yeah. We'll be going into our 3rd year. I was lucky enough 13, 14 years ago to step out and work for a gentleman named Jay Baer, who is one of the biggest thought leaders in the digital marketing industry, and was just really lucky to be in the right place at the right time, working with several of the sort of the country's best agencies over the past decade. And then 3 years ago, decided it was time, after everyone saying, hey, you should really be doing this on your own or starting your own thing. When are we going to get to work with you and your team? I said, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, now's the time to do it. So we started Barber&Hewitt in January of 2015, and it's been an incredible ride since then.
Congratulations. I know what it takes to grow a company, so good on you for taking that leap, because it takes a lot of guts to do it, and it's not for the faint-hearted, is it, being an entrepreneur?
It is not, no. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and it is definitely not for the faint-hearted. No. So it is a roller coaster, but one worth going on the ride for.
I agree. So Michael, my team for Media Frenzy were at one of the social media events in Atlanta and came back. They couldn't say enough great things about the presentation you gave. I think the fact that it had Beyonce in it helped, because we're big Beyonce fans. But that presentation has so many great nuggets of information, which I think is going to really help our audience today. So can you kind of just take us through it, and let's tell some of the stories which you told in that presentation, and I think that'd be really helpful.
Absolutely. So it's framed around this idea of Beyonce because I think any marketer or PR practitioner or anybody that's in this business for a while has gone to hundreds of conferences, and they largely say the same things over and over again. And I think after sitting in those audiences for so many years, I try and bring some lightheartedness to any of the presentations, a little bit of entertainment, and who better to do that for anyone is Beyonce, because she is, as they say, the queen bee. She is a queen of entertainment. And so the presentation is really surrounded about pointing out some of these obvious things that companies and individuals do wrong, whether it's with their products, how they're designed, whether it's with experiences, what's happening in store or on your app or your website, or what's happening through marketing experiences like advertising or content. So we set up the presentation with all these sort of quirky, funny, and really terrible examples of what companies are doing. And then we use Beyonce, we use things like her gifts, we use her music, her lyrics to really bring some marketing lessons to the fold that can be applied whenever you're thinking about new products or new marketing experiences or new ads or anything that you really do inside of your business. So her songs provide a framework for the way companies can think about any of those parts and pieces that they may be ideating about or thinking about doing in the marketplace.
So do you always use the Beyonce framework? Is that that's part of the way you guys do it?
It's certainly become an interesting little caveat. So I was thinking about what presentation I wanted to do over the next year or so. Making Lemonade had just come out, her latest album, and I thought this is a really interesting way to think about different lessons and how we could try and tie what was happening in sort of pop culture to something that's happening inside of a social media or marketing conference. And it's really kind of taken on a life of its own. So our clients now will often, we will come back with a recommendation, and we've had multiple clients say, oh, that's like the Slay example that you showed in your presentation that we went to, or that's Deja Vu. And it's become almost its own being, if you will. But because it's largely trademarked, we can't really officially make a framework out of it. No. It's just a really interesting and fun way to think about whether you're sitting in a meeting and discussing that next campaign, or whether you're thinking about what is this new product that we're putting out and are we making the right decisions as a product team, it's just a really simple framework to think about all of those parts and pieces that go on and inside, small mom and pop businesses all the way through enterprise level organizations.
Right. So can you give me some examples of how you've used that framework for a particular customer?
Absolutely. So one of the examples that it happens all the time, even in our day-to-day lives and that we've used with customers, is something as simple as your email address that people reply to from your campaigns, from your email marketing campaigns. So we point out one of the more obvious, I think, areas where companies that say that they're all about customer experience, that say they're engaged, that are following and having conversations in all of these different channels, kind of fall flat on their face when it comes to email, and that is the do not reply at email address. You see this all the time.
Yeah.
You get an email from any one of the airlines or one of the retailers that you're following, and it says do not reply. And I think what marketers forget is kind of like, we are, as marketers and PR practitioners, are not normal human beings, and we have to kind of take off that hat of being of being a marketer and put on our normal human being hat and think, what does a customer think when they see do not reply at? It essentially means we don't want to listen to you. We have no interest in replying. And so one of the lessons that we use is be close to us, because Beyonce likes to use different songs and different memes, and she shares so much of her life via social media. And we use that lesson of being close to us as just be friendly, right? We want people to be as personable as possible, even in our marketing communications, from as simple as that email address all the way through the conversations that we may be having over a customer service phone line, or through an app, or on Twitter or Facebook. So it's just the little things that we see these companies get wrong occasionally that can really help turn the tides. Because what goes through a normal human being's head is do not reply is you immediately give that customer, that end
feeling,
user,
isn't it?
a negative feeling, right? And it's just one simple little tactic that people can change.
And I have tried to reply to a do not reply just to see what happens, and and then they tell you this, no one's monitoring this email address. So it's
no one's monitoring it.
It's very strange.
And it's shocking to me. It's shocking to me because the example that I use is from some of an old client of mine, Starwood Hotels. So of course SPG Properties, now owned by Marriott, and it is particularly interesting in that case because if you've checked out of a hotel in the last, let's say, 15 or 16 years that they've been delivering your folio or your receipt via email, you get typically 2 emails from these hotels. You get do not reply, here's your folio, and you've got to think, I've just spent a couple $100s with you, and now I can't reply, but you're spending millions and perhaps even in tens of millions of dollars on the ability for people to have a customer service agent on demand through your app, through Twitter, through Facebook, through any one of these social media platforms. But you can't reply to the email address where I got my receipt.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, you get an email that says, hey, we love you. Thanks for staying. Now rate us on TripAdvisor and give us 15 stars everywhere.
Yeah, why should I?
And so
you don't feel
it's
like
such a
doing
disconnect,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's these little things that we can do that customers really start to notice. You can take this to a product designer, product experience example. Nest, of course, the thermostats and the smoke/carbon monoxide detectors, right?
Yeah.
When those came on the marketplace, everybody thought, why am I paying $200 for this piece of machinery that I could just get for $14 on the shelf next to it, and it does basically the same thing? Well, yes and no. Yes, it's Wi-Fi connected, but so is everything else. But what Nest has done is they've added these little things that make your life just that much more happier. Like the carbon monoxide and smoke detector, it lights up when it's dark inside your home and you're walking past it. It's those little things where people start to reinforce this behavior of, I will spend a little bit more, or I will choose that brand if I feel like I'm getting more for that investment and I feel like they're close or friendly to me. And so those little things, right, that companies could be doing to just add a little feature can drive a huge amount of opportunity for them to charge more for things and just make people feel better when they're spending that kind of money for whether it's a hotel or, staying in a hotel, or whether it's that, do not reply at email address. It's just those little
nuances which make a real difference to that, the customer experience. And whether we know it or not, I do think it's leaving some negative connotations with us, but I think many people just think, well, that's how it is, and they don't challenge it. But we should challenge it. We should expect better, shouldn't we?
We
Yeah.
should really, especially in this day and age when we're confronted with so much negativity, whether it's from what we're hearing from politics or what's happening in the world, we as organizations can create really interesting and delightful experiences, even in the smallest of things that we do. And that's really part of the lesson that comes out of this Beyonce presentation is that you don't have to be the best thing in the world. You don't have to have the best product. You don't have to have, you don't have to do the best marketing experience or the best campaign, but you can do the best of what you've got at your disposal, right? Just doing the little things, whether it's the do not reply ad or whether it's having a better Facebook ad that loads faster, right? It's just these little tweaks that we can be doing that will make a world of difference to our customers, to the normal human beings in the world.
Talk about Deja Vu for me. I love the Deja Vu song by Beyonce. And then I love the meaning you put behind Deja Vu when it comes to marketing strategies. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. So, of course, one of Beyonce's most popular songs is Deja Vu. And we talk about this idea of giving the same experience day in and day out. So you can go into a bunch of presentations on marketing or customer experience, and everybody will say, give them surprise and delight. And I say, yes, give them surprise and delight, right? But customers come to expect the same experience when they become that advocate, when they are doing repeat business with you. They don't want massive surprises. They want to be, and if you are going to surprise them, then lead them down the path of that least path of resistance to take the action that you would like them to do. So this idea around Deja Vu is that we want to ensure that all the touch points that we have as brands are consistent. So when someone's walking into one of our retail locations, do our customer service agents and our customer service team, do they speak the same language? Do they use the same terms? Is the excuse and or reason given for things either happening or not happening with an account or with a particular product the same that's given across the organization, right? So whether you're, having an experience on a website, whether you're having an experience in a store, or whether you're having a talk or a conversation with a customer service agent, that shared nomenclature, that language that we train our employees to have needs to be consistent. That experience from store to store needs to be consistent. We use this example, which all of us at this point, I think have probably come to understand, but the IKEA store example. IKEA, you can walk into IKEA and the layout of the store, I think, drives the average human being batty, right? It is, oh my gosh, I've got to get through this entire store and I've got to follow this path. Well, there's a method to that madness. It means that whenever you go into an IKEA store, whether it's in Sweden or Tokyo or the UK or here in the US, you know where that $2 metal spoon is in bin 5 on aisle 1453 because it's in the same it's in the same spot regardless of where you are, right? That consistency is the same experience regardless of where I am. So I understand, even though it may be frustrating, right? Exactly. It's not the best experience, but it's the right experience because I know where that is and the flow of that store every single time. A more practical example that probably everybody has experienced with coffee, Starbucks being the most popular coffee chain in the world. Now, arguably, if you live in any major city, you can get better coffee at probably hundreds of different locations. But I could have the same Pike's Place blend in any location across the world in Starbucks, and I know I'm going to taste the same coffee wherever I go, right? It's that consistent brand experience that happens regardless if it's a product, whether it's a store, whether it's the conversation with that customer service agent. So I don't feel like I'm lost in that experience with your brand.
Yeah. So Ted, why don't you do me a little favor and share a little bit of insight on yourself and your company, Fizz?
Great. So we are the original word-of-mouth marketing company, started 16 years ago, and now we're all over the world, focused solely and exclusively on word-of-mouth marketing. Everything from the strategy to the activation and all the points in between, measurement, all the great stuff.
Very good. So, and word of mouth marketing. I mean, it's something we've been talking about for years and years. When I was at university, kind of 20 years ago now.
That can't be true.
Yeah, honestly, I'm looking good for my age, but thank you.
Awesome. Keep going. Rock on, girl.
Thank you. But word of mouth marketing was really kind of advertising campaigns, and then there was word of mouth marketing, but there wasn't digital marketing, and there wasn't online PR, and there wasn't SEO, there wasn't all that other stuff. And then now I kind of feel like, has word of mouth marketing got lost? But it hasn't, because there's Fizz and you're doing some phenomenal things for some great brands.
Well, I think what you've seen, particularly in the North American market space and those mature to media markets around the world. So mature media market, if you've had television ubiquitous in your market for at least 35 years, the efficiency of broadcast television, radio, pop-up ads on the computer, really starting to decline. And it's starting to decline because everyone's seen it so often, they don't pay attention anymore, right? The data is that 8 out of 10 North Americans don't believe that companies tell the truth in their advertising. And 9 out of 10 North Americans actively ignore advertising that they see every day.
Right.
So what has risen back in being the most powerful communications tool for the North American market space is word of mouth. One friend telling another friend something face to face. So 70% of all those conversations, all the word of mouth conversations are face to face, 20% over the phone, only 10% are in the world of social media.
Right.
And a face to face conversation is 100 times more believable than that same conversation between the same two people digitally. So because there's only 7 or 8 known ways that people can communicate digitally, including emoticons, vocabulary choice, punctuation, but there's over 400 ways that people communicate when they're face to face. Right. So we've all had our mom be angry at us. So just looking at her in the face, you know, what level of angry is she? Is I forgot to take out the trash, or did she find the marijuana hiding in my underwear drawer kind of angry, right? Where is it? It's almost impossible to do all of that nuance in a digital world.
So true, yeah.
Right? So since the average word of mouth conversation is only 32 seconds long, influencers, and we can get to those, who those people are, influencers really try and get in there, share the story, and get back out.
Right. Okay, so you work with some pretty impressive brands, and not all massively impressive, smaller companies too, who are going to be impressive, obviously, after they've worked with Fizz.
Thank you.
How does a brand know, I'm just thinking about some of the clients I'm aware of and some of the ones we work with, like, how does a brand know that word of mouth marketing is right for their business? And maybe that's a dumb question, because maybe word of mouth marketing should be the essence of everything that we do, because that's how we all started doing marketing, was word of mouth. But like I said, we've moved into this other space. But you know, I know you have a criteria that you go to when you choose to work with specific brands. There's certain things they have to meet in order for you to be able to do some great work for them. So kind of talk me through that. How does a brand know that they might be able to do some phenomenal word of mouth marketing campaigns?
All right. So for us, when a brand comes to us and they say, hey, we're interested in talking to you, we really think about 3 separate pieces. We think about, do they have a very specific goal? So just being bigger is not a goal.
No.
Like, we would like to get to X with this, or we would like to accomplish this. Now, they can be big, hairy, audacious goals, but it needs to be a specific goal. And then the second question is, do you have a story? Now, everybody always thinks they have a story, right? Because everyone talks about stuff within the 4 walls. But a story for word of mouth side is not, do we as a company think we have something to talk about? Is, if I tell you my company's story, are you going to remember it and think it's interesting enough to share it with your friends when you're seeing them over that glass of Pinot, or the kids' soccer game, or when we're waiting in line for carpool pickup, or wherever it is that we see our friends? So a story, in order to get shared, has to have 3 qualities to it. It has to be interesting. Interesting so that influencer will pick up this story and judge it. Because it is not technically possible for an influencer to know anything more about any subject on all of planet Earth than you know, because you have a phone in your hand. So with Google and your super powerful smartphone, you can come up with any data. But interestingly, particularly for North Americans, we don't have enough time to take out our phone and like make every decision using our phone. So we come to rely on our friends. And those friends that are most effective are influencers. So if an influencer sees a story, they're like, okay, is it interesting? So I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Is it relevant to my audience? So I have a great story about diaper wipes. You have a child that is 11 and you have another one that is 15.
Yeah.
If I shared with you a story about diaper wipes, you'd be like, oh, why did I bring the diaper wipe salesman to my brunch that I'm having?
It's
right?
not relevant to me.
It's not relevant. So as an influencer, I'm never going to share that, because influencers, and we'll talk about what drives them, but they love to share stories. So is it interesting? Is it relevant? And then is it authentic? Does it currently jive with the way somebody either considers the category in general or the brand in specific? So if you have a story that's interesting, relevant, and authentic, and then there are tests that we do to push through all those to make sure that's true, then word of mouth will work for you. And if you don't, then you have to resort to broadcast.
Right.
Because that's the kind of last bastion of people with a weak story.
And the broadcast is that one-way communication, that kind of, let me tell you how it is, and this is why we're so good, and this is why you need us. And the word of mouth is, let's have a conversation and let me share something with you, which I know you're going to tell somebody else.
Right. And because influencers are kind of interesting since we're talking about this. So real influencers, not people that have a digital following of X number of people, because that's fake.
Right.
Just so we're all super clear.
Okay.
Those people are shills, they're spokespeople, they're spokesmodels, they're publishers, all of which are legitimate, great jobs to have, but they are not influencers.
Right.
An influencer
But why do you say that? Because if you've got all those followers and people genuinely are following you because you got something good to say, doesn't it make sense that when you share that and you got all these thousands of followers that they're gonna, maybe they're not gonna believe you, but they're gonna be aware of what you've said.
Yes, I'm aware of a lot of things,
but it's
that
the
I
believing
don't buy.
bit, is it?
It is the believing bit.
Okay.
And there's also the difference, just to be like very pedantic about it, there's a difference between I am influential or I am an influencer.
Okay.
So we have a couple of clients and they're famous movie stars. And one's a famous movie star and one's a famous country singer. They're both super famous. One is influential, like he can show something and people are like, oh, I'll go check that out in People magazine. And the other is an influencer. So he can tell somebody, hey, I like this, that has nothing to do with country music.
Right.
And people are like, if X likes this, that's interesting, and he knows this about me. And so that makes a connection with me, so I'm going to go try it. And I'm like, really?
Wow.
Check this out. So just because you're famous does not make you an influencer. Influencers have 3 particular personality traits.
Okay.
They like to try new things because they're new. They like to share stories with their friends, and they're intrinsically motivated. So if you're taking money to share a story with somebody, you're a publisher, you're a broadcaster, you're a spokesmodel, you're a spokesperson, you're whatever. You're not an influencer because influencers do not wish to sell.
Right.
I wish to share because I assume, because I know you, you're a smart, intelligent person and you can make your own decisions. So word of mouth is not about getting somebody to do something. It is about putting information out there and assuming that everybody in your marketplace is a rational person that can make their own best decisions about how to spend their own money. And if your story matches with what they need, they will go buy it and you don't have to worry about them anymore.
Right.
And if not, then not. And all the screaming in the world long term is not going to help you sell more stuff.